Marcus Williams stood outside the gleaming glass towers of Meridian Industries, clutching his worn messenger bag and checking his phone for the third time. At 17, he was tall for his age, but still carried the lanky awkwardness of adolescence. His mother had dropped him off 20 minutes early for his first day as a summer intern, and now he watched important-looking people in expensive suits rush past him into the building. The opportunity had come through his high school's career program. Marcus had applied to dozens of companies, hoping to gain some real-world experience before his senior year. His grades were solid, especially in mathematics and computer science, but he knew getting accepted anywhere would be an uphill battle. His family lived in the Riverside neighborhood, where opportunities like this were rare. When the acceptance letter from Meridian Industries arrived, his mother had cried tears of joy. The company was one of the city's largest financial firms, known for its exclusive internship program that typically accepted students from prestigious private schools. Marcus would be working in their data analysis department, learning about market research and financial modeling. He pushed through the revolving doors into a lobby that took his breath away. Marble floors stretched beneath his feet, and a massive chandelier hung from the vaulted ceiling. Classical music played softly from hidden speakers, creating an atmosphere of refined elegance. Marcus had never been in a building this luxurious. At the reception desk, a woman in a crisp white blouse smiled professionally. "You must be Marcus Williams. Welcome to Meridian Industries. Mr. Davidson is expecting you." James Davidson, the chief executive officer, had personally approved Marcus's internship application. It was unusual for the CEO to take such direct interest in a summer intern, but the company's diversity initiatives had been making headlines recently. Marcus represented exactly the kind of opportunity Meridian wanted to showcase. The elevator climbed to the 40th floor, where the executive offices occupied prime real estate with panoramic city views. Marcus's supervisor, Janet Chun, greeted him warmly and began the orientation process. She explained his responsibilities, introduced him to the data analysis team, and showed him to a small desk in the corner of the main workspace. "You'll be working on market trend analysis," Janet explained, handing him a thick manual. "It's detailed work, but it's exactly the kind of experience that will serve you well in college and beyond." For the first few weeks, Marcus threw himself into the work with enthusiasm. He arrived early, stayed late, and asked thoughtful questions that impressed his supervisors. The other interns, mostly from wealthy families and elite schools, were polite but distant. Marcus didn't let their coolness bother him. He was here to learn and prove himself. His mathematical abilities quickly became apparent. Marcus could spot patterns in data that others missed, and his fresh perspective on market analysis caught the attention of senior analysts. Janet began giving him more complex assignments, and his confidence grew with each successful project. The breakthrough moment came during a team meeting in the third week. Marcus had been analyzing consumer spending patterns in emerging markets and discovered a significant correlation that the team had overlooked. His findings could potentially save the company millions in misallocated resources. "This is impressive work," Janet told him after the meeting. "You have a real talent for this." Word of Marcus's analytical skills reached the upper floors of Meridian Industries. James Davidson himself requested a copy of the young intern's report. For a 17-year-old from Riverside, having the CEO review his work felt surreal. Everything changed on a Thursday afternoon in July. Marcus was deep in spreadsheets when Janet approached his desk with an unusual request. "Marcus, Mr. Davidson would like to see you in his office," she said. Her expression unreadable. The executive floor felt different when Marcus stepped off the elevator. The carpet was thicker, the artwork more expensive, and the silence more profound. Davidson's corner office was enormous, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering spectacular views of the city skyline. James Davidson was a man in his early 50s, with silver hair and an imposing presence. He had built Meridian Industries from a small investment firm into a financial powerhouse through aggressive expansion and shrewd deal-making. His reputation was that of a brilliant but ruthless businessman who expected perfection from everyone around him. "Marcus, sit down," Davidson said, gesturing to a leather chair across from his mahogany desk. "I've been hearing good things about your work." "Thank you, sir." "I'm grateful for the opportunity." Davidson studied him for a moment, then smiled in a way that didn't reach his eyes. We're having a small gathering tonight. Some of our biggest clients will be here, along with the senior staff. It's quite an honor to be invited to something like this." Marcus nodded, not sure where the conversation was heading. "The thing is," Davidson continued, leaning back in his chair, "we like to provide entertainment for our guests. Keep things interesting, you understand. I was thinking you might be willing to help us out." "Of course, sir." "Whatever you need?" Davidson's smile widened. "Excellent. There's a beautiful grand piano in our conference room. I'd like you to play something for our guests. Nothing too complicated, maybe some jazz or classical pieces. You do play piano, don't you?" The question hung in the air like a challenge. Marcus felt his stomach drop. He had never played piano in his life. He wasn't even particularly musical. The assumption that he would naturally be able to play piano felt strange and uncomfortable, though he couldn't quite put his finger on why. "I'm sorry, Mr. Davidson, but I don't actually play piano," Marcus said carefully. Davidson's expression shifted slightly, as if Marcus had failed to understand something obvious. "Really? Well, that's surprising. Are you sure?" "Maybe you're just being modest." "No, sir. I've never learned to play any musical instruments." For a moment, the office was silent except for the soft hum of the air conditioning. Davidson drummed his fingers on the desk, apparently deep in thought. "You know what?" Davidson said finally, his tone becoming more animated. "That's even better. It'll be more fun this way. I want you to go up to that piano tonight and give it your best shot. Just improvise. Our clients love authenticity, and there's something charming about someone trying their hardest, even if they're not formally trained." Marcus felt increasingly uncomfortable. "Sir, I really don't think that's a good idea. I wouldn't want to embarrass the company or your guests." "Nonsense," Davidson waved away his concerns. "It's all in good fun. Besides, it's not really a request, Marcus. Consider it part of your internship duties. You want to be a team player, don't you?" The words carried an unmistakable threat. Marcus understood that refusing wasn't really an option. His internship, his future recommendations, possibly even his college prospects could depend on going along with whatever Davidson had planned. "Yes, sir." "I understand." "Wonderful. The gathering starts at 7. Wear something nice. I assume you have a suit?" Marcus nodded, though he wasn't sure his one good suit would meet Meridian Industries' standards for something nice. "Perfect. Oh, and Marcus?" Davidson's voice took on a casual tone that somehow made his words more menacing. "This stays between us for now. We want it to be a surprise for everyone." Walking back to his desk, Marcus felt a growing sense of dread. Something about the entire conversation felt wrong. Why would Davidson assume he played piano? Why insist he performed despite his obvious lack of ability? And why the secrecy? He tried to focus on his work for the rest of the afternoon, but concentration was impossible. The other interns chatted about their evening plans, completely unaware of what Davidson had asked him to do. Marcus considered calling his mother for advice, but what could she say? This was his dream opportunity, and he couldn't afford to mess it up. As 5 o'clock approached, Marcus gathered his things and prepared to leave. He would go home, put on his best suit, and return to face whatever Davidson had planned. Despite his growing unease, he told himself that maybe it wouldn't be as bad as he feared. Perhaps Davidson genuinely believed in giving people chances to step outside their comfort zones, but deep down, Marcus suspected there was more to this request than met the eye. The way Davidson had smiled, the assumption about his musical abilities, the insistence on secrecy, it all added up to something that felt less like an opportunity and more like a setup. Standing at the bus stop outside Meridian Industries, Marcus looked up at the towering building one more time. In a few hours, he would be back inside, walking into a situation he didn't understand for reasons he couldn't fathom. All he could do was hope that his instincts were wrong and that somehow everything would work out. The bus arrived, and Marcus climbed aboard, his mind racing with questions and fears about what the evening would bring. Whatever happened next, he knew that this night would change everything about his internship at Meridian Industries. The following morning, Marcus arrived at Meridian Industries to find the atmosphere dramatically changed. Word of the previous night's events had spread through the office with remarkable speed, and he could feel the weight of curious stares as he made his way to his desk. Janet Chun was waiting for him with a steaming cup of coffee and a concerned expression. "How are you feeling?" she asked quietly. "Better than I expected," Marcus replied honestly. Angry, but also strangely relieved. Before they could discuss the situation further, Janet's phone rang. After a brief conversation, she hung up with a worried look. "That was Human Resources. They want to see you immediately." Marcus had expected this. Davidson would likely try to spin the previous night's events in his favor, possibly claiming that Marcus had been insubordinate or unprofessional. As he walked to the HR department, Marcus mentally prepared for what might be his final hours at Meridian Industries. The Human Resources Director, Patricia Wells, was a sharp woman in her 40s who had built a reputation for fairness and thorough investigation of workplace issues. She invited Marcus into her office and closed the door carefully. "I've received several reports about last night's client gathering," she began, her tone neutral but attentive. "I'd like to hear your version of events." Marcus recounted everything that had happened, from Davidson's initial request to the evening's unexpected conclusion. Patricia listened without interruption, occasionally taking notes on a legal pad. "You mentioned that Mr. Davidson insisted on this performance even after you told him you couldn't play piano," she said when Marcus finished. "Did he give you any indication why he believed you would have musical abilities?" "Not explicitly," Marcus replied carefully. "But the way he phrased things, especially his comment about natural rhythm, made me feel like he was operating on certain assumptions about me." Patricia nodded grimly. "I see, and you felt you couldn't refuse his request?" "He made it clear that this was part of my internship duties and that being a team player was important for my future here." After the interview, Patricia informed Marcus that there would be a full investigation into the incident. In the meantime, he should continue with his regular internship duties while the matter was resolved. As Marcus returned to his desk, he discovered that the story had taken on a life of its own. His fellow interns, who had previously been distant, now approached him with a mixture of admiration and curiosity. Several senior analysts stopped by to express their support and share their own experiences with Davidson's questionable judgment, but the real surprise came 3 days later. When Margaret Thornfield from Thornfield Capital Management called the office asking to speak with Marcus directly, "Mr. Williams," she said when Marcus picked up the phone, "I've been thinking about our conversation the other night. I'd like to offer you an opportunity that might interest you." Margaret explained that her firm was launching a new research division focused specifically on emerging market analysis. They were looking for fresh perspectives and innovative approaches to understanding global economic trends. "We'd like to offer you a paid position for the remainder of the summer," she continued. "It would involve working with our senior analysts on real projects, with the potential for a permanent role after you graduate from college." Marcus was stunned. "But I'm still in high school. I haven't even applied to college yet." "That's exactly why you're valuable," Margaret replied. "You're thinking about these problems without the constraints that formal education sometimes imposes. Besides, we're prepared to help with your college applications and provide scholarship support if you're interested." The offer was incredible, but Marcus hesitated. "I appreciate this opportunity, Miss Thornfield, but I made a commitment to Meridian Industries. I don't want to leave my current team in a difficult position." Margaret's warm laughter came through the phone. "That's exactly the kind of integrity we're looking for. Don't worry about the logistics. I'll be speaking with Patricia Wells about arranging a proper transition." When Marcus shared the news with Janet Chun, her reaction was immediate and enthusiastic. "You have to take this opportunity," she insisted. "Thornfield Capital is one of the most respected firms in the industry, and Margaret Thornfield is legendary in emerging market analysis. But what about my work here? The projects I'm involved with? Janet smiled. Marcus, in 3 weeks you've contributed more valuable insights than some analysts manage in years. We'll miss you, but this is the chance of a lifetime. The investigation into Davidson's conduct concluded 2 weeks later. Patricia Wells called Marcus into her office to share the results. We've completed our review, she began. Multiple witnesses confirmed your account of events. And this isn't the first complaint we've received about Mr. Davidson's judgment regarding diversity and inclusion matters. She paused, choosing her words carefully. The company has decided that Mr. Davidson's leadership style is no longer aligned with Meridian Industries' values and standards. He'll be stepping down as CEO, effective immediately. Marcus felt a complex mix of emotions. While he was gratified that the company had taken his complaint seriously, he took no pleasure in anyone losing their job. What about the internship program? He asked, will other students still have these opportunities? Absolutely, Patricia assured him. In fact, your experience has highlighted the importance of proper training and oversight for all staff who interact with interns. We're implementing new protocols to ensure that every intern receives the respect and support they deserve. On Marcus's last day at Meridian Industries, the entire data analysis team gathered for a farewell celebration. Janet Chun presented him with a letter of recommendation that emphasized not only his analytical abilities, but also his integrity and professionalism under pressure. You handled an impossible situation with grace and strength, she told him. That's worth more than any technical skill. Several of his fellow interns approached him privately to share their own experiences with subtle discrimination and microaggressions at the company. Marcus realized that his decision to speak up had given others courage to address issues they had previously endured in silence. Robert Chon from the client gathering had also reached out, offering to mentor Marcus through the college application process and provide guidance on career development in financial analysis. What you demonstrated that night wasn't just intellectual ability, Robert explained during their first mentoring session. You showed the kind of character that can't be taught in any classroom. Marcus's transition to Thornfield Capital Management exceeded even his highest expectations. Margaret Thornfield personally oversaw his integration into the research team, pairing him with senior analysts who were genuinely excited to learn from his fresh perspective. His first major project involved analyzing technology adoption patterns in Southeast Asian markets. Drawing on his earlier insights about emerging market behavior, Marcus developed a predictive model that accurately forecasted mobile payment adoption rates across 6 different countries. The research was so impressive that Margaret decided to present Marcus's findings at an international conference on emerging market economics. At 17, he found himself sharing the stage with economists and analysts from around the world. Margaret introduced him to the audience with obvious pride. Marcus Williams represents the future of economic analysis, brilliant, innovative, and unafraid to challenge conventional wisdom. After his presentation, Marcus was approached by representatives from several top universities, all offering full scholarships and early admission opportunities. Harvard, MIT, Stanford, and Columbia all expressed interest in having him join their economics or business programs. The media attention that followed the conference brought Marcus's story to national prominence. Business magazines profiled him as a rising star in economic analysis, and his experience at Meridian Industries became a case study in workplace discrimination and the importance of giving young people opportunities to excel. Davidson, meanwhile, had largely disappeared from the public eye. Industry insiders reported that his reputation had been permanently damaged, and he struggled to find new opportunities at major firms. A year later, as Marcus prepared to start his freshman year at MIT on a full scholarship, he reflected on how dramatically his life had changed since that uncomfortable evening at the piano. He had maintained relationships with many of the people he met that night. Margaret Thornfield remained a mentor and friend, and Robert Chun had become like an uncle, providing guidance on everything from course selection to investment strategy. Most importantly, Marcus had found his voice and learned the power of standing up for himself and others. The internship program at Meridian Industries had been completely restructured, with new policies ensuring that all students received meaningful work experience free from discrimination or harassment. Janet Chun, who had been promoted to director of the revamped internship program, stayed in regular contact with Marcus. "You changed everything," she told him during one of their phone calls. "Not just for yourself, but for every intern who comes after you." On the day before leaving for college, Marcus visited his old neighborhood in Riverside. The community center where he had first learned about internship opportunities was hosting a college preparation. Marcus returned to Meridian Industries at 6:30 that evening, wearing his only suit, a navy blue outfit his mother had bought him for high school graduation. The building looked different after hours, with most of the fluorescent lights dimmed and security guards stationed at key points. The lobby's classical music had been replaced by something more contemporary and upbeat. Taking the elevator to the 40th floor, Marcus could hear the murmur of conversation and clinking of glasses even before the doors opened. The executive conference room had been transformed for the evening's gathering. Soft lighting created an intimate atmosphere, and servers in crisp white uniforms circulated with trays of champagne and elegant appetizers. About 50 people filled the space, a mix of Meridian Industries executives and what Marcus assumed were important clients. Everyone was impeccably dressed, engaged in animated conversations about market trends, investment opportunities, and summer vacation plans. The women wore designer dresses and expensive jewelry, while the men sported suits that probably cost more than Marcus's family spent on groceries in 6 months. And there, dominating one corner of the room, stood a magnificent black grand piano. Marcus had hoped that maybe Davidson had forgotten about their earlier conversation or changed his mind about the performance. But as soon as the CEO spotted him near the entrance, he excused himself from a group of clients and approached with the same unsettling smile from that afternoon. "Marcus!" "There you are. Perfect timing," Davidson said, placing a firm hand on the young man's shoulder. "Are you ready for your moment in the spotlight?" "Mr. Davidson, I've been thinking about this afternoon, and I really don't think—" "Nonsense," Davidson interrupted, his grip tightening slightly. "You're going to do wonderfully. Trust me." Before Marcus could protest further, Davidson guided him toward the center of the room. The executive tapped his champagne glass with a fork, and the conversations gradually died down as all eyes turned toward them. "Ladies and gentlemen," Davidson announced, his voice carrying easily across the room, "I have a special treat for you tonight. One of our summer interns has graciously agreed to provide some musical entertainment." Marcus felt his face flush as 50 pairs of eyes focused on him. Some of the guests looked mildly interested, others seemed puzzled by the unusual interruption to their networking. "Marcus Williams here is going to play piano for us," Davidson continued, and Marcus caught something in the CEO's tone that he couldn't quite identify. "He's been quite modest about his musical talents, but I've convinced him to share them with us tonight." The guests applauded politely, and Marcus noticed several executives from his department looking surprised. Janet Chun stood near the windows, her expression concerned and confused. Davidson led Marcus to the piano bench and gestured grandly toward the keys. "The stage is yours, young man. Show us what you've got." Marcus sat down on the bench and stared at the pristine keys stretching before him. The piano was clearly expensive, a Steinway & Sons grand that probably cost more than most people's cars. He had never been this close to an instrument of such quality, and under different circumstances he might have appreciated its craftsmanship. The room had fallen completely silent. Marcus could feel the weight of expectation from the audience. But there was something else in the air, an undercurrent of anticipation that suggested some of the guests knew something he didn't. He placed his hands tentatively on the keys, trying to remember anything he might have learned about piano from movies or television shows. His fingers found what he hoped were the right positions, and he pressed down gently. The sound that emerged was jarring and discordant, a random collection of notes that bore no resemblance to music. Marcus winced and tried again, this time attempting to find some kind of melody. The result was even worse. A painful cacophony that made several guests shift uncomfortably from somewhere in the crowd. Marcus heard muffled laughter. Then more laughter, growing less muffled and more open. He glanced up to see some of the guests exchanging knowing looks and barely concealed smirks. Davidson stood beside the piano with his arms crossed, watching Marcus's struggles with obvious amusement. "Don't be shy," he called out. "Really let loose. Show us that natural rhythm." The comment sent a chill down Marcus's spine. Something about the way Davidson emphasized natural rhythm felt loaded with meaning that had nothing to do with musical ability. Marcus tried once more, pressing keys in what he hoped might form some recognizable pattern. The sounds that emerged were random and harsh, causing several guests to wince theatrically. The laughter was becoming more widespread now, and Marcus began to understand that this was exactly what Davidson had wanted. He was the entertainment, but not in the way he had initially thought. He wasn't here to showcase talent or provide genuine musical accompaniment to the evening's festivities. He was here to be laughed at, to fulfill some stereotype that Davidson and his guests found amusing. The realization hit him like a physical blow. The CEO had assumed Marcus could play piano not because of anything he had said or done, but because of who he was, a young black man who Davidson apparently believed would naturally possess musical abilities. When Marcus had admitted he couldn't play, Davidson had seen an opportunity to create a different kind of spectacle. Standing up from the piano bench, Marcus faced the crowd of wealthy executives and clients. The laughter died down as they realized the show might be over. "I think there's been a misunderstanding," Marcus said, his voice carrying clearly across the room. "I told Mr. Davidson earlier that I don't play piano. I've never learned how." Davidson's expression shifted, the amusement replaced by something sharper. "Now, Marcus, don't be difficult. You're here to entertain our guests." "No, sir. I'm here as a summer intern in your data analysis department, where I've been doing excellent work for the past 3 weeks. The room was completely silent now, the tension palpable. Several guests looked uncomfortable, perhaps beginning to understand the true nature of what they had been witnessing. Marcus continued, his confidence growing with each word. "You asked me to play piano based on an assumption that had nothing to do with my actual abilities or interests. When I told you I couldn't play, you insisted I try anyway, knowing it would create exactly this situation." Davidson's face was reddening, and Marcus could see the man's carefully controlled facade beginning to crack. "That's quite enough," Davidson said sharply. "You're out of line, am I?" Marcus asked. "Because it seems to me that asking an intern to humiliate himself for the entertainment of clients is what's out of line here." Janet Chun pushed through the crowd, her face a mixture of horror and determination. "Marcus, what's going on here?" she asked, though her tone suggested she was beginning to piece together the situation. "Mr. Davidson asked me to play piano for your guests," Marcus explained calmly, "even after I told him I don't know how to play." Janet's eyes widened as she understood the implications. Several other Meridian Industries employees were exchanging concerned glances, clearly uncomfortable with what they were witnessing. Davidson attempted to regain control of the situation. "This is simply a case of miscommunication," he announced to the room. "Young people today seem to lack the flexibility and team spirit that previous generations." "No," Marcus interrupted, his voice strong and clear. "This isn't about flexibility or team spirit. This is about respect." He turned to address the entire room. "My name is Marcus Williams. I'm 17 years old, and I'm here this summer as an intern in the data analysis department. 3 weeks ago, I identified a pattern in consumer spending data that could save this company millions of dollars. Last week, I developed a new model for predicting market fluctuations that my supervisor called brilliant." The guests were listening intently now, their earlier amusement completely gone. "I don't play piano," Marcus continued. "I've never claimed to play piano. But I can analyze complex financial data, write computer programs, and solve mathematical problems that most adults find challenging. Those are my actual talents, and those are the skills I was hired to develop this summer. Davidson looked furious, but before he could respond, one of the clients stepped forward. She was an elegant woman in her 60s, wearing a sophisticated black dress and an expression of genuine interest. "Mr. Williams," she said, "I'm Margaret Thornfield from Thornfield Capital Management. You mentioned identifying a significant pattern in consumer data. Could you tell us more about that?" Marcus glanced at Davidson, whose expression had shifted from anger to alarm. "I discovered that current models for emerging market analysis are missing a crucial variable," Marcus explained. "Consumer behavior in developing economies follows different patterns than traditional models predict, especially regarding technology adoption and spending priorities." Margaret Thornfield nodded approvingly. "That's fascinating. Have you published any research on this?" "No, ma'am. It was just part of my internship work here." Another client, a distinguished man with graying temples, joined the conversation. "I'm Robert Chun, no relation to Miss Chun here," he said with a smile. "I specialize in emerging market investments. Would you be willing to discuss your findings in more detail sometime?" Marcus felt the energy in the room shifting dramatically. What had begun?